Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Well, welcome back. Time for our Impact Interview. Certainly knows what it's like to burst onto the scene as a true freshman. Led the team in rushing with over 1,000 yards in 1983. Was an All-American by the time his career ended and scored the game-winning touchdown to clinch the '86 national championship. And talk about versatile. A first-round pick in the NFL in '87, played 5 years with the Vikings, and played in the major leagues with the Mets for a brief time simultaneously. What an honor. Please welcome DJ Dozier to Nittany Game Week. Nice to have you, DJ.
Hey, nice to be here, Todd. Good to see both you, Jay, and Tom.
Well, look, we call this thing our Impact Interview, and you certainly made the decision to come to Penn State from Virginia. So tell us about that choice and how coming to PSU has impacted your life all these years later.
Well, there's no doubt I made the right choice. Penn State, the experience was incredible. Back then, I had 5 visits, 5 different schools. Penn State ended up actually being the last school that I chose to visit, just simply because I didn't know if Penn State was still interested, like some of the other schools. And so my last visit my choice of my last visit was between Nebraska, Alabama, UCLA, and of course Penn State. And when I got to Penn State on my recruiting trip, I right away realized how dedicated the university and Coach Joe was with making sure you had at least a nice experience coming up as a recruit. And so staying with the players, staying with my host, and then having a chance to visit with the dean of business and some of the other players, obviously. When I walked away and I got back home, I immediately said to my mom, I know exactly where I need to go. And I still had 2 visits left, but my head coach, my high school's head coach, actually still made me to go on those last 2 visits, which was almost torturous. But there was no doubt that Penn State. There was actually no second. It was a choice between Notre Dame, Carolina, Virginia Tech, Georgia at the time, and that was when Herschel was down there. So for me, it was a simple choice after the visit.
DJ, this year, 2 freshman running backs have taken the lead for Penn State's offense. In your freshman year, as Todd mentioned, you kind of burst on the scene, but you went into a 12-game season that included games against 7 ranked opponents with 2 wins over top 5 teams. So how hard was that transition for you going from high school to college and the demands of that kind of schedule?
Yeah, great question. What was amazing at Penn State, and at least my experience, and I tried to pass on the same kind of thing as I got older at Penn State, but John Williams took me under his wing and really taught me about things that I wouldn't have learned, maybe not even from the coaching staff. He was teaching me things from experience on the field. And so by the 3rd game of my freshman year, although, limited experience, I had enough instruction from the head guy, to at least get out there and have an impact. And so I remember one of the first games I got to start. It was against Alabama, it was the big game. And I remember looking across the huddle and seeing big old John Hand. I think he was about 6'7". I don't know how much he weighed, 275, 280, whatever it was. And in my mind, I'm thinking, dude, you better run hard and fast. Don't worry. You got to, as a running back, the best running backs, I used to say at least, is that you run scared and you run hard.
Hey, DJ, it's good to see you, my friend. It's been a while. Hey, Penn State plays Maryland this weekend, and from your time at Penn State, you went 3-0 against the Terps. Penn State opened the 1985 season as an underdog at 7th-ranked Maryland and got a 20-18 win. How big was that win in sparking a 23-1 record over your last 2 seasons at Penn State?
No, Tom, I remember that game. That was, matter of fact, of course, back, and I'm not sure if they still have grass, but it was on the grass, but it was still over 100 degrees that game. So not just a tough opponent, but had to deal with the elements. And I remember having to sit at least for a series just to grasp my breath in that game. Many guys lost, 10, 12, 15 pounds. So not just a big game, but dealing with the elements was rough. Coming away with the win out of there was incredible, especially, the way we won. I think I remember Mike Zorich catching a interception and running for a touchdown in that game. So everybody showed up. It was a tough match, but like I said, we came away with the win, 2-point win.
So, DJ, here's a question we've waited a whole week to ask you. Last week, our Impact interview was with Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, and we asked him about growing up and playing in the talent-rich area of the Virginia Tidewater region. He stated he grew up pretending he was DJ Dozier when he was a kid playing football in the backyard. What was your experience like playing there, and how cool is that, knowing that you inspired one of the most successful NFL coaches of this era?
Well, obviously that's a tremendous honor, right? It's but that's also just the way it is in this area. We had some growing up. I looked, most people don't realize that Lawrence Taylor played, down the highway a bit at Lafayette. But one of the running backs that I enjoyed watching as a kid was out of Lake Taylor High School, famous Amos Lawrence. And, I think you guys would remember that name.
Yep.
None of the young guys would, right? But it was nothing to see famous Amos run for 2, 3, and I think maybe one game he may have had 400 yards in a game. Probably have to look it up just to verify. But it's an honor for Coach Tomlin to say what he said. Tremendous, but it's just a great star beside this area, right? We're proud when we say 757 these days, because there was a time when not too many athletes out of this area were going to big time colleges. I think Kenny Easley was one of the first big names that went and actually became a Heisman candidate on the defensive side of the ball. And what a career he had. So not a whole lot of talent was plucked from that area that went to big time schools, back in the 80s and 70s. But, we believe there's always been talent here.
So, DJ, I'm going to take you back in a time machine. It's a preseason scrimmage at Penn State in 1986, and you get to the second level and you're one-on-one. Who would you least likely like to see unblocked in the hole? Shane Conlon at linebacker, safety Ray Isom, or I have to say Trey Bauer, because Trey thinks he's the greatest player that ever played at Penn State. So it's Trey Bauer, Ray Isom, or Shane Conlon, or is there somebody else that was even scarier back then?
Well, listen, of course, Shane back then was a scary dude with that missing tooth and that neck about 18 inches. But there was one other guy that I went up against on the goal line that I said to myself, I will never do this again. And that was Bobby Anko. And, Bobby Anko had that 22-inch sized neck. And, with the ego that I tried to have, I said, goal line, as a running back, you only need 2 yards to push a guy. Him, man, it was like hitting an absolute wall. And I remember laying there thinking, this will never happen again. Juke only. Yeah, so Bobby Anko was on the juke only list.
Hey, DJ, we mentioned that you were a two-sport professional athlete. How did you manage to make that move to Major League Baseball while also playing in the NFL? And what was your season training like? How did you get it all done?
Not easy, Tom. Matter of fact, part of the story is when I decided to play baseball, I had played in the NFL for a couple of years, and it 2 years before that I had gone to the World Series, and that sort of sparked a whole lot of interest and remembrance of the love for the game. But you'll get a kick out of this, Tom. So I called my agent, who was Brett Sr. at the time, and I said, Brett, hey, I'm thinking about playing baseball. And that's what I heard. he went silent on me. But you know, he was key in reaching out to the Phillies and a couple other teams, because I was originally drafted by the Tigers, and so he reached out to the Tigers. But there was one key contact. That was Dave Rosenfield out of Tidewater. He ran the AAA team for the New York Mets, and he always said to me, "Hey, no matter what, no matter how far away you are, never stop thinking about baseball." So when Brett called him, he actually called Joe McIlvaney, and Joe McIlvaney actually said that, he goes, "I still have the scouting report on him 6 years ago in high school," and so the Mets responded the quickest, and gave me a chance, gave me a tryout. Ironically, when I got down to St. Lucie, my first at bat was against no other than Doc Gooden.
Oh,
and I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding you. Well, yeah, of course, now he was doing rehab, so he wasn't throwing 100%, but he was throwing pretty good.
I would imagine 90% Doc Gooden is still pretty imposing, DJ. But hey, I want to follow up with that real quick because a couple of other guys in that era were doing it. Did you ever talk to Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders afterwards? Like, did you kind of pick their brains a little bit about how to do the off-season training or what that is like to do both? Because look, it's an exclusive club. There's some really exclusive lists, man, and you're in one of them with those guys. Did you kind of pick their brains a little bit or discuss really what kind of company you were in to do that?
Well, you know, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to talk to actually Deion and Bo. I didn't. Matter of fact, I didn't just talk to Bo until after my career. Talked to Deion during that time, but I learned the hard way. I learned, you know, back then baseball, they were just starting to introduce weights and allow guys to work out, and so my first year of playing baseball and then going back to football was rough because I didn't do a whole heck of a lot of lifting. That's tough. And so I learned the hard way that I had to do something to at least maintain so that I wasn't too far behind, you know, from a strength and conditioning standpoint. So, you know, I didn't get a whole lot of advice from the guys back then. I had to learn by trial and error.
Tremendous achievement.
Yep.
We really appreciate your time. Anything else, guys? Tom, Jay, you got DJ right where you want him. You want to ask him a question? No?
Yeah, you know, DJ, I'm going to get all the calls from those guys on defense. I thought I was the toughest guy hitting them. I thought I was, because you know Shane's calling me as soon as this show is aired. You know that, right?
And I would have asked you, I made it a second level question. I didn't put Timmy Johnson in there because I know that would, because Timmy put my helmet sideways the first day I was on practice field in '86 in pads, and my helmet was definitely sideways. He was a monster.
Yeah, Timmy was a monster, but he was obviously, you know, he was my roommate, and we still stay in touch today. Absolute great guy off the field, but on the field, like most of us, he was a monster, like you said, Jay.
Yeah.
You know, I got to see him in high school because I recruited him, DJ, out of Sarasota. So he was something, wasn't he? He was a difference maker, wasn't he?
Oh, he was a game player. I mean, you know, you gotta, if you really get to know that guy, I mean, off the field, you can't believe how much of a teddy bear he is, and then that, right? But on the field, I mean, he was a maniac. You know. We had a couple of those, I think, right?
Yeah, yes, no doubt.
Well, DJ, I said they had you right where they wanted them. How about you? Anything before we go? Anything you wanted to add to Jay or Tom?
Wow, boy, I wish I'd have known I'd have a chance.
Good. Okay, and we're off.
Well, you know, there's one story I got to share before I get off the air here. So if I have enough time here, yeah. So Jay, both of you and Tom will love this. So you guys remember, well, this is my freshman year, and I won't name his name, but so it was a senior captain that apparently had missed the van to get to the plane, that because back then we were flying out of Harrisburg to get to Jersey. and I forget who we were playing down in the Meadowlands. But anyway, I'm on the bus. I'm on the plane, and by then I was starting to play more, so I was, I had the starting position, so I was a little closer to where Coach Paterno was getting prepared to sit down, and this senior captain gets on the plane, sweating, breathing hard, and he says, "Thank God, Joe, I made it." And Joe's looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" Well, Joe didn't know that he had missed the van. I'm sorry, the bus to get to the plane. But he had to take the van with the equipment guys in order to get to the plane. So he's telling Joe the whole story. So once Joe has the whole story, Joe tells him to get off the plane. and the senior captain says, "What?" Joe says, "Get off the plane." And then he said it a third time, except he said it with a little more veracity, right? And that voice, "Get off the plane." Kicked the guy off the plane. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he kicked the senior captain off the plane. Well, 2 weeks later, speaking of Timmy Johnson, we're supposed to fly out I think we're flying out later that day. And so I said to I said to Tim, "Hey, make sure you wake me up before you head down to the locker room," because he was going to class and then he was going to come back. Well, that rascal forgets to come back. So Jay, Tom, Todd, I open my eyes in my dorm room in West Halls, and it's 3:20. And I think we're supposed to be there, and the bus was going to leave at 3:30.
Oh my gosh.
I am not dressed. I got dressed as fast as ever in my life, I'm guessing. And I'm running down Pollock. Is it Pollock?
Yeah. Pollock, yeah.
Yeah. Running down Pollock, dress shoes, everything, bag. And lo and behold, I get to the tennis courts. And you know how the first bus makes that turn up the hill? Yep.
Yeah.
I stopped at the tennis courts thinking, oh gosh. And the bus stops in the middle of the road. Now, in that position, in that situation, do you actually really want the bus to stop? Or you just miss the whole game and go back to your dorm room, right? As a freshman, especially after what I experienced 2 weeks before that, right? So I'm thinking, okay, dear Lord, I got to jog up to this bus waiting for me. I'm going to step on the first step and Joe's going to throw me off the bus so I can go back to my dorm room. And now, lo and behold, I get on the bus. Coach Paterno doesn't even look at me. He turns around and looks at the equipment guy and he says, "I thought you said everyone was here." And of course, he's stuttering. "Well, Coach, I thought everybody was here too." Now, he never touched me, never said a word to me about that. That was my freshman year. My senior year, I wasn't late. I was just the last one that came out of the locker room. And he ran me down to get in my face to tell me. I said, "I'm not late." He goes, "You were the last one. You can't be the last one."
And you're probably still 10 minutes early.
Yeah,
And you were the last one.
Yeah. With Joe, it was
I
always
was 10 minutes early,
he's 5
but I was the
minutes
last
late.
one.
Well, you're a two-sport star, and it took every bit of your athletic ability to go catch that van, I'm sure, DJ. So, hey, look, thanks a lot. We really appreciate your time. And I know these guys have really been looking forward to catching up with you, and it was a treat for me to listen in as well. So thank you very much.
Thank
Well, I
you, DJ.
appreciate it. Great
Thanks.
to see you guys,
Good to see
and have a great night.
All right, save you.
All right, you take care, okay?
Thank you now.
Yep. Good night.
Bye-bye.